A buyer agent can't control what a buyer buys, but you can be sure he can control what a buyer sees. 1% of 100, it's 1%. 1% of 6%, that's 17%. Would you lower the price of your property by 17% just to sell it? I might be tough, Mr. Seller. I'm protecting the value of my own fee, but you can be sure I'm going to be equally as tough, fighting tooth and nail, protecting the equity for every dollar that you've earned here for the last 10 years that you've owned this property.
I mean, if I'm negotiating on behalf of my family and I'm willing to drop my commission that quick, what makes you think I won't do that the same for yours?
The question was asked to me yesterday when I was role-playing with somebody at 11:30, talking to the seller as far as getting the commission, and then if she had a buyer agency agreement signed with a buyer and she brings the buyer in, can she get paid twice?
It remains fairly the same in the sense of we offer out, instead of a commission, you're offering out a concession, and it can't be marketed. Is that correct? But at the same time, a home that doesn't offer out some sort of commission for a buyer and a home that does, if I'm representing the buyer on my end, I'm going to more likely take my client to the house that does, driving in more traffic to the house that does offer some sort of concession or compensation. What if you get to a point where you agree upon 6% and then they tell you, well, you're representing the buyer now too. So instead of that, let's renegotiate that commission down to 4 or whatever that is, and maybe try to get that commission from the buyer based off of their offer, like coming out of their, because you could take it out of their offer too as well, right?
Yes, you can do that. I wouldn't. If you get a seller that says that and you're representing the buyer, and now the seller says, well, since you're representing the buyer, let's negotiate your commission down. Do you have a handler for that?
Oh,
I can appreciate that, Mr. Seller. So it sounds like you're seeing the value of offering out a percentage of that to the buyer agent. Now it sounds like you're just asking me if I should take less. Is that right? One of the skills you're going to be hiring me for as your agent is the skill of negotiating, because we're going to be having conversations about the price of your property without you present. And let me say this, Mr. Seller: 1% of 100, it's 1%. It's not really that much, but 1% of 6%, that's 17%. That's a big number. Let me ask you: would you lower the price of your property by 17% just to sell it? I might be tough, Mr. Seller. I'm protecting the value of my own fee, but you can be sure I'm going to be equally as tough, fighting tooth and nail, protecting the equity for every dollar that you've earned here for the last 10 years that you've owned this property. Because I'm going to imagine that that's going to be very important for you and the agent that you hire.
I mean, if I'm negotiating on behalf of my family and I'm willing to drop my commission that quick, what makes you think I won't do that the same for yours? Now, other side, I'm talking to the seller, and the seller's trying to draw me down. Because it's going to be a lot harder to get 6% now.
I would say this: I don't know if it's going to be harder to get 6, but you can get 6. But what they're going to do is yes, if you represent the buyer. I just had this with 2 listings that I took. He was like, "Well, if you bring the buyer, obviously we can work on that." And I was like, "Well, tell me what you're thinking." Well, at first I said, "Hey, once we can come to an agreement on this, is there any other reason why we can't complete the paperwork?" And he was like, well, I have a couple more questions. And I was like, "Okay, well, let's tackle those questions first," which we did. And then we came back to this, and he's like, well, it's, the previous listing that I had, if the seller agent brought the buyer, we did it at 4.5. And I was like, I can appreciate that. Would 5 be agreeable to you? And I said, it's a full percentage point down. And I said, in order for me to build a relationship with you, I'm willing to do this. And I pulled the Jose. I was like, man, like 5%. Okay. And I sat there and did that. I could do 5. And I was like, perfect. Done and done. The likelihood that you're going to double end it, 20% maybe? 1 out of 5 times?
Yeah.
So I'm willing to do that for 1 out, because usually I don't even work with the buyers. I just send them to, I don't get buyer hits. And now here's the other thing too. When you and the seller agree on what he's going to offer out, what you're going to offer out, the buyer agency agreement is null and void. That's not, you can't get paid twice on these.
Okay.
On your listing, there's no buyer agency agreement that's going to come into play. Now, if you have a buyer that wants to buy that property and you have a buyer agency agreement with them and you're the listing agent on that property, it's whatever you agree with the seller.
Instead of it being like what we would charge before, a full 6%, all right, I'll take out of that 6, I'll give 2 out. And now it's 2 completely separate. So my commission's my commission. Whatever you decide to offer out as a concession to bring in buyers is up to you, but it does not affect my commission.
Whatever you agree on, like, so for me, I always do, like, if it's 6, I'll do 3.5, offer out 2.5.
Yeah.
And if it's like a third party referral where it's like I'm giving out a huge rip, like 35%, I'll take 4 and give out 2. But I almost never do that anymore.
If you're in a listing appointment and they ask you like, okay, so what do you recommend is fair to offer out as a seller's concession? Should I just continue on with like the average, like 2.5%, 2%?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I would just say something like, yeah, great question, Mr. Seller. Right now, what buyer agents are, accustomed to receiving is 2%. So I think through 2%, anything below that, and you run the risk of them not showing your property versus your neighbors, which we obviously don't want. We want 100% exposure. Isn't that right? Yep. Okay. So yeah, I would, Mr. Seller, that's what's customary. Are you comfortable with that? I'm trying to shy away from using words like standard, because that's the basis of the lawsuit is they were saying that commissions are, standard or whatever that is, or, non-negotiable, whatever. Just saying customary or average, normal, things like that.
That makes sense. Do you think it'll be tough in towns? Right now, it's like kind of a mix because there's the inventory is going up. But let's say there's a town that has really low inventory, and then they're saying they can't bring their buyer anywhere else because this is all there is on the market right now. There's only 4 or 5 properties here in Millbury, for example. So is there a way to overcome that as well?
He's saying he's not going to offer anything out, or he's going to offer something
out? He doesn't want to offer anything out. He's being real stubborn, and he's basically saying that I know the market. I know that the inventory is low in my specific town. We don't want them to bring their buyers somewhere else. It's like, well, there's not anywhere else they can really go.
Yeah. And I can appreciate that, Mr. Seller. Let me ask you, and I know that we have definitely low inventory now, but the question would remain, sir, and I mean this respectfully, is what would be the buyer agent's incentive to show your property if he's not getting paid on it?
That's good.
A buyer agent can't control what a buyer buys, but you can be sure he can control what a buyer sees.
Yeah.
And if he's not sending your property to his buyers because there's no compensation on their end, do you think that's going to have a positive or a negative effect on how many showings and offers you get? These are objection handlers, but they're really just questions that the buyer or the seller's asking that they don't have answered yet. That's all they are. And then the other thing that what was the one other thing I wanted to go over with you guys? Oh, and the interest rate market. So I know that, are you guys aware that the Fed decided to hold rates steady again 2 days ago? And, everybody was thinking they were either going to, drop it 1/8 of a point, that kind of stuff. And it's just not happening. It's not going to happen for a while. So, and I have in here, like, does that affect us in any way as agents? With regards to listing property, skilling up, so you guys can keep listing and selling in any market. Interest rate market to me doesn't make a difference.
We just adapt.
That's it, man. You just said it. All we do is just adapt to it. When they do start to come down, yeah, our business will obviously pick up a little bit. But the fact that you're skilling up now, role playing, you're on these calls with Aaron, you're on these calls with me. If you guys ever wanted to jump into like Jessica's call, you guys can jump into her call. I think Humberto, sometimes you're even there, which is cool.
How do you get access to those?
Just text her, email her.
I think on the Elite Builders chats on WhatsApp, you also find the Texas group there. Yeah, and you can join it, and then they share the link.
Yep. So it just to real quickly brief on the Fed decision. There's not like I always tell people when they ask me, like, just get used to this, man. This is where we're going to be. We really, from 2020 to 2020, really 2023 last year, like 22% of all the money that's in circulation was printed between those 3 years, between 2020 to 2023. That's a huge, like, that's almost a quarter of all the money, like all of this money, like everything you see here, like all of this was printed in the last 3 years, almost 25%. That's just
Really?
it's a monster number. It's a monster. And you can't have that much money in circulation and bring rates down. There's no correlation to it. You can't. This money, it's like this money has to dry up. All of that money they printed has to kind of like dry up and get swept and like mopped before anything can come as far as rates coming down. Because they can say inflation's low, but it's and Aaron talked about it yesterday, and it's I knew it. They don't include housing and they don't include gas with inflation reports. And the reason they don't is those are the two most expensive things.
Yeah.
So if you're basing someone's cost of, because they give cost of living increases for Social Security, and Social Security's broke, they have no money there either, but they're printing it out and sending it. So if you're giving cost of living increases every year for, to the Social Security people that are getting social and Medicare, why would you put the two most expensive things in there that's going to push the numbers up, which makes your cost of living increase go up? They're not going to do it, which is why they leave them out. Yeah. So it's a manipulated number. Inflation's always a manipulated number. So I always say, whatever it is, multiply that times 2.
Okay.
It's always what it is. So if they're saying it's 2, it's probably 5. It's probably more like 6 or 7 now. But as you get into higher numbers like 5, multiply it. It's probably 10. If they're saying it's 7, it's probably 14 to 15. That's my golden rule. I'll always multiply it by 2. When you have those two factors, like an inordinate amount of money in circulation and, higher inflation, they're never going to you can't bring rates down. You can't. There's no way to do it. So we don't worry about that. Again, it's an external circumstance. We're not worrying about it. We keep skilling up. You keep role playing. You keep getting on the phones in the morning and making calls and finding people by asking the right questions what their motivation is. It's really all it is. But there is definitely a shrunken number of transactions because of this. So your skill level and these new agents you're talking about bringing in, Omar, the only way they're going to be successful is by skilling up. That's it.
Yeah.
I know that you're hearing a lot of stuff on the outside from the media and even other agents and things of that nature of like, rates are going to come down. It's like, no, they're not. Doesn't matter. Yeah. You're going to be skilled and good enough to list property no matter what. So just keep doing what you're doing. Keep buying into these phone calls. Go to the 1:00 call with Aaron. Do the one tomorrow with Jose Luis. Just keep getting in proximity to super high level producers and do the work on your end. Practice, prospect. Omar, you're seeing it. Humberto, you're like, brother, it's there, man. Like and just so you know, Humberto, that guy, John, like, I've never had this actually happen to me. I don't mind sharing it with you guys. Like, I've been doing this since 1999 when I got out of college. I've literally never had a seller in his 60s just decide to like ghost me and not respond to any form of communication. I took the listings. It was 2 listings in areas, one near me, one near Humberto. And I got the paperwork sitting in my inbox and over here behind me because I have the hard copy of it. So listings were done. He's like, great, we got to get these properties sold. Okay, perfect. Like, what's next? And he was like, we just got to mow the grass and get them gussied up. And that was literally the last time he responded to me. That was about a month and a half ago. I just don't know what even happened to him, whether he's dead or moved. Who knows? He literally just stopped taking my calls and texts. So I've never had that happen to me with signed, like with freaking signed paperwork. Somebody just now decides, like, I'm just going to not at least have the gumption or the courtesy to tell me, like, I'm going to go another direction. We're not interested anymore. Something changed. Whatever the case is. He didn't even have the gumption to do that. These things happen all the time. And they happen to me. I am not averse to having somebody do it. It's happened to Aaron. He gives me numerous examples when he was in production of sellers that just their expectations change when they're listed, and he releases them and is like, all right, you're just going to need to go your way and I'm going to go mine. Yeah, any other questions, guys, before I let you rock and roll? Keep prospecting, doing your thing.
Doing your thing. Good to go.
I love it, man. Yeah. Keep going, man. Keep making these calls. I want to hear wins when you get somebody an appointment, a listing signed. Like, I want to hear about it. So text me, shoot me an email, whatever, man. Hit me on social. Just, I love to hear the wins. So give me some wins when you guys get them. All right.
Will do. Thank you, Dan.
Most people think cold calling is just dialing numbers and hoping someone picks up. It's not. It's research, strategy, timing, and a whole lot of rejection before anything good happens. Today, you're going to see all of it. The calls that go nowhere, the deal that almost fell apart, the call I forgot to record, and the ones that matter. This is a real day.